we go. Hi there, everybody. Hi. Hey, I'm so glad you joined me. That's so cool. Excellent. I got a bunch of people on this time. Excellent. Great. I love it. That means this nighttime is a good time for everybody. Hopefully, yes. And I'm Dr. Deb, and it is Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So welcome everyone who's here. Why did somebody just drop off? What happens when that happens? I never understand it. How, like, there's people who just drop off and where are they? Hey, oh, I'm so glad you joined too. Okay, so what I want is exactly what you're doing. Thank you. I want interruptions throughout the whole thing. If you don't understand something, you disagree with something, you want to add your own experience or your own thoughts, you want to just contribute, please. That's what I need. As I said to somebody this afternoon who texted me that, or rather emailed me, that the time was good, the topic was good, but they couldn't make it. And I said, but I like talking to people. Actually, that was not accurate. I like talking with people. Funny, I'm a therapist, right? I like the conversation. So please chime in, everybody that's on, and tell me what your thoughts are and so on. So tonight's talk, has trauma affected your life in ways that you don't know? So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of political, not me being political, our government being political, and good for them in this case. I'll tell you why. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which doesn't really have the whole title, DSM stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Okay, if you're in this book, they believe you're nuts. I don't like that. I think that's rude and wrong. And here is how they define trauma. And the only type of trauma that they have defined at all is called post-traumatic stress disorder, which means something happened. And then afterwards, you've got a disorder. You're behaving in a way that is not healthy for you. So what does this really mean? And here's their definition, and it's super important. Exposure to actual or threatened death, serious injury, or sexual violence in one of the following ways: either experiencing it, witnessing it, learning about it, or having extreme exposure to aversive details of the traumatic event. And they go on. There's a number of different criteria here. No, actually, that's the only one. And then they have all the different reactions that a person might have. Okay, now we have, our government has a department, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health, SHA, I forgot what the last, SAMHSA, which is part of the government, SAMHSA. And here is what they say. They're a little iconoclast. They're not buying this. And I love it. Listen. Their definition is: individual trauma results from an event, series event, or a set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening. See the difference between the two definitions? You don't have to have been in an airplane crash. If you had an abusive parent who you saw slapping the other parent, that might be your trauma. Harmful. It doesn't have to be an experience of death. Right away, we have a difference. And I'll finish the line off, and that has lasting adverse effects on the individual's functioning and mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. And what are these effects? They don't need to list them, because when you start getting too detailed and listing all the effects, you're going to leave out something. So just be global. Don't have every little thing listed. And that is what I have been calling, and many therapists have been calling, little t trauma. It could be death, God forbid, like an airplane crash or a big car crash for that matter. But it doesn't have to be. Now, you've seen me take out this book on other occasions, The Body Keeps the Score by Basil Vanderkolk. And he talks about the everyday experience that some kids go through that never ends, that can become traumatic to them because of the adverse effect it has on them. And that is why that adverse effect is more important than what actually happened. For some people, it could be more. Some people, it could be less. So I want to go through all of the 7 scenarios that I had listed in the little announcements that I had in emails you received and wherever you saw it of this talk tonight. And I want you to understand from the last one first what's going on. So the last one, I couldn't resist. It's the bully guy who says, or a lady who says, "Oh, Dr. Deb, you're making a big deal of nothing. You're blowing things out of proportion, and you can make more money that way. Ha, ha, ha." Okay. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who actually see things this way. In the good old days, we didn't pamper ourselves so much. So I want to talk about the adverse effects to prove that whoever thinks like scenario number 7 has to think again. So let's talk about symptoms of trauma that people have. For example, let's say that something happened to you as a child and people in your family know it. They have talked about it. And maybe even you knew that it happened, but you can't remember anything. Does that mean you're faking it? Does that mean you're hiding something? No. If you can't remember something that happened in your childhood that was not good, maybe the Broca's area in your right hemisphere went offline. Your Broca's area is the speech area. It's what puts things to words. It's me talking to you now. If I didn't have a Broca's area, I couldn't do it. But a person who's verbal and suddenly can't remember, it may be that was traumatic and it shocked the system into the Broca's area going offline. Here's another possible symptom. What if, even though you can't verbalize what happened, you have flashbacks? You see the event unfolding before your eyes and it almost feels like you're there and that is the Brodmann's area. That is the visual area. And often it can become activated from the littlest trigger. So when the person who says, "Oh, Dr. Deb, you're exaggerating," well, these are things they've actually found with imaging studies. I don't know if they'd get away with a study like this nowadays, but there was a big car crash, like a 20-car thing in Canada one day. It's snowy there. And there was poor visibility and there was a lot of skidding. And anyway, a lot of deaths. And they took some of the people who were in that car crash and they wanted to understand what happened to them because they were traumatized. And they put them through the monitors, the CAT scans and all, to see what happened to their brain. And so what I am talking to you about now is exactly what happened. Either the Broca's area, which the verbal area, went offline, or the Brodmann's area, the one that lights up when you're seeing things, horrible things perhaps, went online. So those are two different types of results that can come from trauma. But not only that, research shows that trauma, either in childhood or even as an adult during a marriage that's not working out well, increases the risk for, now listen to this, chronic lung disease. Like what? Heart disease, liver disease. Wait a minute, Dr. Deb, these are physical things. What are you talking about? I know they're physical things, but these physical things have been impacted. Your body keeps the score, as van der Kolk said. They have been impacted by the stress that you have been under when you've been traumatized. I'm not saying you have been. I don't know that you have been, but a person who has been. Other researchers, are you ready for this, have found that people with childhood abuse as adults have shorter DNA strands. Yes, they're called telomeres. This little part of the DNA, don't ask me to explain it because I haven't looked that stuff up in a long time, but it's part of the DNA and it shortens from stress, from excessive stress, trauma. Other researchers have found again and again, and this is a little old. This is cited in 1998. I used it in my dissertation, so it's a little old. Have found again and again that abused women have more internal medicine, gastroenterological, gynecological, and other health complaints than non-victims. They actually compared groups. Amazing. Finally, a Science Direct report says the impact on adverse childhood experiences on the development of children and their long-term adult health outcomes has since been recognized as a public health crisis. And I don't remember where I got that from, but I did a little bit of additional research just today to be sure that I had the most up-to-date information, especially since I quoted something from 1998, which is a couple of years ago. But yeah, it hasn't changed. Your human body and human ways of reacting haven't changed. This is how we are. And thank God the people who at SAMHSA have said, I don't care about the DSM stuff. This is not reality to me. What I want is to define things properly. So now let's get back to all the other 6 of the scenarios I had in my announcement for tonight's talk. The first one talked about a woman who was afraid to express her truth to her husband for fear that it would come and bite her in the rear. And those words actually were said to me when I did my dissertation, which was in the 90s. It's a long time ago, yes, but I still hear it today. And what that person was saying is, if I am vulnerable, and in that particular case, somebody said that she didn't get along with her mother. And when she mentioned this to her husband, that it hurt her terribly, he brought it up later on in an argument to throw in her face, even your mother doesn't like you. Oh my God. So what the lady is saying here, she can't be honest. Now, my question for you guys, do you think it's normal for people in a healthy marriage to be able to share just about everything, including the kind of thing I just said, to be totally vulnerable? Do you think it's normal? I'd love to hear from you what your thoughts are. Is it normal for a person to be able to say, yes, that I could speak my mind, I could say what's happened to me, I can share my most vulnerable self? Yes, I think it is possible. I agree. And I have married children, so I see it happening. They are able to say these things. Yes, 100%. And I would say, as a matter of fact, that it's important to know that this is not only possible, but good. Because the essence of a healthy, exactly, it should be the norm. Thank you. The essence of a healthy marriage, hear me here, is the ability to not be alone, all by yourself with your own thoughts, and not bear the burdens on your heart all by yourself. Life can be very tough. And when two people can be open and vulnerable with each other, a little bit of your burden of being who you are, living who you are living with, or how you're living, has been lifted because it's shared. So that scenario is a great example of a person unable to be able to share her burdens, because it came back to bite her in the rear. Scenario number 2, how much emotional expression is healthy? This guy was punching a wall because he learned in his life growing up from his family, that is what you do. You express your emotions. And then his wife left him. It scared her. My goodness, it would scare anybody, but he didn't even realize that. So now I'm turning the question around. Well, how much of your emotions, including anger, should you be able to share in front of your spouse? That's my question. Yes, I agree with that. Self-regulation is needed. Thank you for that. See, this is a little bit the opposite. People have said to me a lot of abusive people have said, well, I should be able to express myself. Not so fast. Not so fast. There was a guy, Murray Strauss, who is since deceased. You can't look him up. But when I was writing my dissertation, he was at the University of New Hampshire. He's the one who wrote the first book called Behind Closed Doors. I did a Google search yesterday, and there's like dozens of books by that title, but he created that title. And he's the one who did research on what goes on in the way of domestic violence that no one knew about, including police. Nobody talked about domestic violence. This was like 1980, I think, or 70. No, it was 80 that he published that book. One of the things he said is exactly what you've said there, that when couples self-regulate, they can express themselves without going over the top. They can share what's bothering them, and they have happier marriages. They feel happier. They report more happiness than people letting it all out, exploding all over the place. So to have that ability to express yourself may not be good. Now, does that mean that you keep it all in? No. You have to say, I'm mad because. And somebody said, being safe. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Because just like the first lady from example number 1, who couldn't share that her mother and she didn't get along, she should have been able to. What a wonderful healing experience it would have been for her to have her husband take her in his arms and say, "Don't worry, I love you," instead of throwing it in her face later on because they had a fight. So yes, being safe is part of the ability of being vulnerable. Does that mean you never get mad? No, you can get mad. I once asked a very wise person who I was asking him for advice. Well, I will be honest, my spiritual mentor, who I was asking way back when I was first a newly minted therapist, what do I tell parents? Because my field's marriage and family, right? What do I tell parents who are so angry because their kid did something wrong? And his advice was very smart. You are allowed to act like you're angry, but never give discipline when you're actually angry. Do just enough for that kid to get the message, but not one drop more. And so I'd say the same is for your spouse. If your spouse, I had someone say to me, they don't hear me if I don't yell. That's malarkey. Of course they hear you if you don't yell. Well, they don't listen. Well, what do you mean listen? Are they honoring what you're saying? Are you telling them in an accusatory fashion? Like, what's going on? If you say nicely to someone, I'm hurt and I'm upset, and you tell them why, how could they not listen? Of course they'll listen. Now, maybe they don't have the capability of handling themselves and doing what you need. That's a whole other topic. And if you go through all my blog posts, you'll find that in there. Yelling sometimes shuts people down, exactly the opposite of what you want. Exactly. Point taken. Thank you. By the way, other people, I know there's a bunch of people on. Please, 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 please comment. I want to hear from you as well. I never mention the names, although the chat will show up with names. Yeah, it's true. And you may not want to, so okay, that's your choice. But somebody just gave initials here, so you may be able to do that. You can figure this out. But I do want to hear what your thoughts are. Okay, let us go on to scenario number 3. The person who makes, and by the way, I see I'm going to run over time. If you need to leave at the exact moment of 9:30, I will not be hurt, but stick around if you can, because I'm only on number 3 and there's 3 more to go. A person who makes pommeling is not the answer. Shutting down is not the answer either. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you. Right. You have to be able to express your emotions, or once again, you're alone. And that's not what a marriage is for. But yelling is not necessary. Beating each other up is certainly not necessary. You can get the message across. Trust me. I've seen enough good marriages to know that. And they're a pleasure to behold, by the way. Anyway, that's what I want for all of you. I want to see good marriages, happy marriages. All right, so getting back to number 3. The guy makes a joke and he goes, ha, 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 it was only a joke. Let me tell you, the famous last words, it was only a joke, are exactly that. Famous last words. They don't add up to truth. They are lies. It wasn't only a joke, and I'll tell you the proof of it. When those people are in therapy with me and I see them alone, you wait in the waiting room. I'm going to see this one here for a few minutes. What was behind that? No, nothing. It was only a joke. So what were you feeling? Well, I was a little mad. Yeah. End of case. Of course you're a little mad. You weren't joking. You were trying to humiliate and put down this person. Now, let me tell you something. Shame is one of the most toxic emotions. If you want to read more about shame besides my book, you should read Brené Brown. I like her. I haven't actually read her stuff, but I've seen enough little TED Talk snippets and things. She's a smart lady. She's a researcher. She's a researcher at university, so she's not just spouting off her opinion. She's really talking about experience. Shame, humiliation, put downs, being dismissive, all of that are toxic. They're toxic to the soul. They crush the other person's soul. And I found a website that made a very nice list, not just my one idea. People like that will use vulnerability against you. Why will they do that? Well, that's a whole other story. I know we call them narcissists, and I have a whole new playlist on defensive narcissists. Not that their behavior is defensible, but the reason they got that way requires healing, not punishment. But that's another bunch of one thing they'll do is compare you to others. You're just like your mother or your father in a negative way. Or they'll compare you to who you used to be. You didn't used to do that. Well, gee whiz, I'm entitled to grow, for crying out loud. Don't straitjacket me, right? They don't celebrate or encourage your passions. No, you shouldn't do that. No, how will our family have enough money to survive? Okay, money is important. I get that. But maybe two people pooling their income can make it if each one likes and loves the work they're doing. But your passions matter. Are they sarcastic? Do they roll their eyes? Do they emphasize or draw attention to what others will think? Do they make private wars public? That's a big one. So making private wars public is like stripping you naked in front of strangers. We don't do that. That's what boundaries are for. Why would a person share private stuff at a dinner party? Why would they do that? Well, they have their own reasons, but it's wrong. And I'm listing all these just to help you see if you have experienced any of those things. So wait a minute. Oh, yeah, okay, silence and hiding truth is abuse. That's right. There's a lot more to it than just yelling 100%. Absolutely correct. I don't want to get into politics, but that's what fake news means when people say this. They're making up stories by chopping off part of a story and not telling it. Like, my God, I saw that woman punching her husband. In fact, she took a gun and clobbered him. Well, we don't say that he was about to kill her. God forbid. But I'm just saying that's what fake news is, and that's what hiding half of a story is. Yes, you got to tell the whole truth. And in public, you should tell none of it. It's none of anyone's business what's going on in your house. If you're in so much pain that you've got to spill it out, come see me. That's what I'm for, right? Okay, now we're going to get to number 4. And this is true. I've seen this many times with parents. Elderly parents whose children are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. Elderly parents and even 60s will say, I can say anything. I'm your parent. No. They can't say it to the little tiny kid, and they can't say it to the same person when they're a grown-up. No. The answer is no. That is abuse. And let me tell you something. If you had a parent like that or two parents like that, that might explain why you ended up in a marriage that was painful too. Because it got you so doggone used to it that you didn't realize it was wrong. It was wrong from the parents, and it's wrong now. I had a guy just 2 weeks ago say to me, one of my clients, if you live in New York, you could become my client. Say to me, you just want me to hate my parents, don't you? I'm like, no, I'm not blaming your parents for doing all these terrible things. They must have suffered too. They had something happen to them that made them pass this down to you. It was wrong of whoever gave it to them, and it was wrong of your great-great-grandparents as well. I don't know how far back to go. It was wrong. But let's stop it here. Let's know what it is so we don't pass it further. So then the question is, how polite do you think parents have to be? That's my question to you. Parents who are 80 or 40 or 20 of kids, how polite should they be to their kids? Love to see answers. I don't know if there's a big delay or people just don't want to answer. You speak to a child when you're not angry and you're allowed to pretend to be a little bit angry. That's the answer. Wait, courtesy is important. Treat others as you would like to be treated. Yes, even parents. Thank you. You should treat them as you would like to be treated. There you go. See? Thank you. They should treat you how they would like to be treated. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, even parents. Even parents. Even elderly parents. No one has a right to splash their mouth all over you. It's a terrible, cruel thing. And it hurts more, perhaps, coming from parents because they're the ones who are supposed to be there for you. They're the ones who are supposed to be in your corner. I remember when I was in graduate school and my mother-in-law would say to me when I got discouraged, don't worry, you can do it. My mother-in-law. That's how you talk to your children or children-in-laws or grandchildren, anybody. Yeah. And she was right. I guess I got through, didn't I? All right. Number 5 and number 6 are not about how the parents treat you, but how you watched your parents treat each other. In one case, the parent just left and they never saw the parent, and the kid never saw the parent again. And in the other case, they slept in different rooms and the children knew it. Let me tell you something. These things are trauma too. And you can't whitewash it. In fact, I have an article which I found online 2 years ago. So it's a little old. It's dated 7/10/22. And you might find the book, though. This guy is Warren Farrell. Warren Farrell, Farrell. And he did some research. And this is the title of the article. Fatherless homes are linked to mental illness and mass shootings. Whew. So we just had some, didn't we? I'd be very interested. I had it a few weeks ago. I wasn't thinking about this article. People could go look that up and let me know. I would love to hear it in the comments after we close up and this is published, whether the mass shooters that we just had, like 3, I think, in the last 3-4 weeks, like crazy lunatic mass shootings. I'd love to know if the person's father was absent in their home growing up. So I have gotten through all 7 of my examples. And let's face it, I could write a book. In fact, I'm going to say again, if you want a book explaining what abuse really is, I got to get that in the window there. Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score. And there are tons of research and how it affects the brain. It's not such hard reading. I think he's easy to follow. I don't think it's hard reading. There are certain people I've reviewed here in the past that I said, forget it. Like Antonio Damasio, God bless him, a big neuroscientist on the brain, but his writing is hard to get through. But I got through it, but I don't recommend it. This is huge. Having dysfunctional parents can be devastating to the children. Exactly. And can snowball through generations. Yes. Now, let me make a final comment right on that one. Dr. Schwartz, Richard C. Schwartz, who is the founder of Internal Family Systems, which is what I do on top of being a general marriage and family therapist. The approach I use most and love most is IFS. And he says there's even a name for that because he could see when you talk to people that it's not something that's really in you. It's not like, well, this is how I am. It was passed down. And by the way, if you've ever seen a genogram, a family tree, you see it's passed down. It's called by Schwartz a legacy burden. A legacy burden. That would not surprise me. Children who are bullied will not know how to understand their worth. Exactly. And they're aware that their fathers are needed. Yeah, and their fathers may not be there, or they may not be there mentally, even if they're there physically, because they're preoccupied, or they are sick, or they're mentally sick, or they're on drugs, or whatever. Yeah, all of that. That's all a form of trauma to people. So when you see yourself or the people you love have adverse reactions, don't blame them for it. This is where it comes from. It's a normal process. And that is the reason why I hate, with a capital H, the idea in here that you have a disorder. You don't have any such thing. It's perfectly normal to react badly to bad situations. So thank you for showing up. I am so happy. And what I would like you to do, all of you, is to email me. You should know how to reach me. It's drdeb at drdeb.com. If you don't remember that, you can just comment in the comments after this stops. And in the description of my channel, my website is there with my also how to reach me. I would like you please to tell me what other topics you would like me to talk about, because when you all show up in a good sized group like this, it makes it worthwhile for me. Then I'm happy. I think with the extended family, the truth should be known. No hiding. It affects the entire family. Yes, yes, yes. But see, what happens to people who are ashamed themselves because they've been shamed in the past is that's when they keep secrets. They feel so much shame from reasons we don't even know that preceded our existence on earth that they end up keeping secrets. But I really want to let you guys go because now I'm super overtime. I promise this is usually a half hour. So you guys, thank you. And let me know what topics you want. Okay, I'll read this one. I don't think the truth needs to be known if you're dwelling on the dysfunction instead of the fix. No, I think what this other comment meant is if there's something people need to know about, it should not be hidden. I'll give you one crazy example, but I heard it. A young couple got married and then got divorced very shortly thereafter because the person, one of them, waited till the marriage to say they could not have children. That's terrible. Yes, you do have to share the truth. It seems to continue instead of being resolved. So we'll have to have, it's a good point. I hear what you're saying. We'll have to talk more about that to really get clear on what conditions you should not say something and what conditions you most definitely ought to say something. So thank you all for your comments. Thank you all. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. This made me very happy tonight.